Hello there. I'm Lori with Co-Creating Impact and itstimesunshine.com. Here again with our good friend Christine. How are you doing today?
I am fantastic. Thank you for having me today. Again, I get to see your face again. It's so nice to be here.
I'm so
Thank you
excited
for
to
having
have
me.
you. Yes. So the Trauma Lady, that is the name that you came up with on TikTok. And you talk a lot in length about trauma, what trauma is about, PTSD, and you're so informative. I really appreciate your talks on TikTok. So please take it away, girl.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate the feedback. It's been a great experience coming on TikTok and finding a community. My whole goal was to build a community that talks and takes the stigma out of trauma and PTSD, anxiety disorders, rejection sensitivity dysphoria, and all of the things that come with that. And it's been an amazing experience because, as you know, trauma is not just one thing. Trauma can be multiple things. And now, the more that we're learning and the more that we're seeing the impact of trauma in all of our lives, generational, vicarious trauma, PTSD, and complex PTSD, we're having conversations that get down to the root of it. And it makes it so much easier. And I'm so excited to have the community that's coming forward and sharing their stories and finding safety and security and stability in their own agency. And it's amazing to watch. Trauma is a deeply or distressing or disturbing experience, or it's a physical injury, it's a wound. That's really the definition of it. And when we look at that, there are so many types of trauma that happen in our lives from even before we were born. We can have generational trauma that carries over. There's a lot of thought that it forms us in utero.
Mm.
And so we are predisposed, human beings are predisposed to have trauma experiences, even when we're not really active in the trauma. And it's great to watch people be able to break through and get the lexicon they need to then have the empowerment in their own scenarios and know what's going on with them. Because it's not just you're crazy, because that word, ugh. But yeah, in the dismissal
Mm.
of it, it is actually trauma causes brain injuries, and it affects all of the entire being in our body. Much like if you were in a car accident and you had a traumatic brain injury, it leaves scars in your brain. So not all things are communicating. And the more that we talk about it and the more we understand that, it just opens us up to have a very honest world that we can live in and provide safety to others that really, really are struggling. So I'm just thankful that it's taking off.
Yeah, and the vulnerability that shows up in your groups and your Facebook group and TikTok, it's just amazing to hear other stories. And it's one of those things where I feel like um, your story is like someone else's guide to survival. And sometimes when we hear somebody's story, we connect so much with them and it brings us joy. And where this relates to your past is that you found that your trauma correlated with your chronic illness. Can you talk just a little bit about that? Because I know that's what we mostly talked about in the last episode.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was diagnosed with MS almost 12 years ago, 13 years ago now. And MS is multiple sclerosis. And we found that in a lot of studies that are really coming out, that autoimmune disorders are often paired with complex PTSD or specific trauma because of the way that our systems are all built. So over the period of time where I grew up, generational trauma and acute events and vicarious trauma through other people, and then my own traumatic experiences, it came back to having that inflammation of my body and not having the agency for it to calm down, because there's a whole brain system that goes into that, where we're just constantly on alert, and it sends out hormones and does all kinds of crazy stuff to our body, and we can't regulate it the way that we would consider, something standard and baseline to be. And I found that even in the heightened stress events, it complicated my body systems. And it brought me to an understanding that it wasn't just me. It wasn't just my events, or that, it was all in my head. Ooh, of course it's all in my head. I have MS. My body is trying to eat itself. And just like with fibromyalgia and all of the other autoimmunes that we're coming to, and chronic fatigue, they all lump together because our bodies are a whole system. It's a holistic system that we have to treat, not just one area, but all other areas. And I've noticed that during my extreme stress times, such as abuse or high stress or job relationships or things like that, where there's conflict, I have flares more often. And
Mm.
it takes a toll on my body. It takes a toll on my cognitive function. And because we're human beings, we're built that way. We're built to survive. And if we're just surviving, is it enough to be able to calm it down and find the tools you need to be able to regulate the system that you're in? You didn't choose it. I didn't choose my brain and my body, but I have to learn how to work in it, kind of like a car. It's kind of like exploring the systems and knowing how it works to make it better.
Totally. The
So,
mind, body, spirit. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And safety and security and stability are utmost important when we talk about trauma, because we're living in an unsafe environment within our body most of the time. And we want to make sure that that is really the focus of what our core goal is it safe? Is it stable? Is it secure? And those are the guiding posts that I use in dealing with others. It's very helpful, and it kind of sets up guideposts and torches where people can see what it should look like. And that's super important to us and to me. So I really am very thankful for that insight that I gained, even in the stressful bad times.
And where exactly did you gain all this insight? Because you have so much information that you deliver so beautifully. Where did you gain all this information?
Thank you so much. It started years ago. I am a voracious reader, and I love to read. And so when I don't understand something, especially with ADHD and neurodivergence in me, I want to know all the things.
Mm.
And for me to know all the things, it was to go to the main people and find out, the resources, what is available, what is the term, what does that look like, what can be done about it, how did it evolve? And it's a curiosity that comes from wanting to know and wanting to have justification and validity in my life. So I take what works. I take what works for other people and what's worked in the past and what doesn't work and mix them all up. And a lot of it's my experiences in trauma therapy and working in the systems I've worked in and watching other people with them, managing the symptoms and watching the informed responses to what happens in our day. That is just it really just ties into the pain and the hurts that we all have as human beings. And I wanted to know, like, somebody's got to know what's going on. And it's been a lifelong journey now of just saying, wow, this information is out there. It's public information. I don't have to be a doctor to know all of the things. I can access this and then share it. And that makes the community so much stronger when you give people the tools and the terms they need.
Yes. And especially when you yourself have gone through things and you've been diagnosed by a doctor and you're able to relate it outside of the doctor patient trust there. It's like you have this way about you where you're able to, like, say I go to therapy, but yet I am able to come into your room in between therapy appointments and be able to hear stories, which helps tremendously. So tell us a little bit about the difference between PTSD and CPTSD.
So PTSD is one event. So you could be in a car accident and have PTSD, where complex PTSD are constant exposure to multiple traumatic events that build over time. And that can be intergenerational, it can be family systems, it can be relationship issues, it can go with all the trauma systems, like even poverty, racism, sexism, all of the isms that we see can be very traumatic to people. And what is traumatic to one person isn't traumatic to another person. So that variance has a lot to do with how it started. PTSD was built off of the military system because that's where it was funded. Now it's evolving into complex PTSD, which, if you've grown up in a system where you've said, that's just not right at the dinner table, and you've got issues with your parents or your family, it normally is a culmination of events that leads us to understanding that we're not alone, that it is the culmination of it, not just one event. And that's super important because the terms we use for access for everyone versus a specific group, such as, medical care and veterans and accident survivors and assault survivors, is very important because it empowers us to be part of, yeah, that's me. Yeah, that's what I have. Oh my gosh, you have that too. And it broadens our availability and community to keep to tie us together in ways that no one else has ever been able to do. So yeah.
Right. And do you know what the difference is for the symptoms between PTSD and CPTSD? And now I know we can look this up, but it's kind of nice to hear it out loud.
I got it. I got it. So PTSD often goes down with, simple body flashbacks or reliving the events, where complex PTSD are flashbacks, shame, blame, guilt. And there's not a lot of difference in that and PTSD. Disassociation, huge in complex PTSD, destructive, risky behaviors. And those all sound very much like PTSD. Emotional dysregulation, physical symptoms like headaches, dizziness, stomach woes, isolation, relationship difficulties, suicidal thoughts, hypervigilance, which is a big one for most people, dysphoria, which is low grade, we have low grade depression, amnesia, which not a lot of people think about, difficulties with a sense of identity. Who am I? What does that mean? Also, trust issues, vulnerability issues, anxiety, and also issues with anger. And those do overlap, but it is a constant building of the behavior, not just one event that happens. So it's a high stress response to even just the daily living of it. And it's, oh boy, is it big. Is it big ever? Oh boy.
Yeah, and it's different, I think, for everybody who has PTSD or CPTSD as to what works for them every day. Like, do you believe that there is an actual cure? Is it something that is just constant work?
I believe it's constant work. I believe it comes with the practice of being safe, being present, being available, understanding and pausing the emotions and being able to have them make sense and have space where it's not overwhelming constantly, and where you can stop surviving and start evolving and growing and then thriving. We gain our identity in all of those hard questions. And it's hard, dirty work. Don't get me wrong. It's not easy. It's a constant examination of everything. But you really start to get it when you really start to get it. And that's what I love to see, is when people get the boops. I call them the boops because it feels literally like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. Did you do that? I did that. Oh, what was that? And it amazes me every time it happens. And I love it because it's so exhilarating to have your own power back. And I can't say enough about me watching people in their relationship to this. It's amazing to see the growth in human beings, and especially those that have been hurt by other human beings. So, we just deal with it the best we can, but it's a daily process and a minute to minute process, much like sobriety or anxiety or, illness and injury. That's how we deal with it, is just be present as much as you can and deal with what you can and put the rest on the burner. And then we go from there.
Yes, and trauma is a huge discussion that I hope that you'll come back and share some more. We're running out of time, but I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much, Christine. You can find her. I'll leave all the descriptions everywhere, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we're getting a website soon too, Lori. So
Oh,
I'm looking forward to the release of that. So I'll give you all the information as soon as it launches. And I'm glad to come back anytime you want me.
nice. All right. Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.